Welcome to our latest weekly special, Road to Recovery. I Don't. Weddings on hold. So weddings are more than just the marriage of two people. They are engines of economic activity. There's the venue, there's the dress, there's the music, not to mention everything that the guests spend. They've got the plane ticket, the hotel, the gift. It's a $78 billion industry that has all but been ground to a halt by coronavirus. Every year in this country, there are over 2 million weddings. And here at Yahoo Finance, we have two that are planning their weddings right now. Final round anchor Myles Udland and West Coast correspondent Melody Hahm, who join us right now. So we thought we would use them as a case study for what challenges and what changes couples are facing right now in this new landscape. We also have final round anchor Seana Smith here, a recent newlywed herself, to help us out. I want to start with Myles, though. So Myles, I mean, you've got your wedding. It's coming up in October. I guess, can you talk us through what kind of changes you have been making or adjustments you've been making to your plans?
So the first thing we did is we kind of just cut the guest list by like 80%. So right now, the working plan, and we're set to get married in New Jersey, which is, a pretty hot spot. So I can't imagine that gatherings over, let's say, 50 are going to be allowed by October 10th. So we're planning on immediate family and the wedding party, which is like 28 people right now, something like that. And I think because of the politics, as you guys know, of like guest list, Jen, you're done. Sorry about that. It's like when you start bringing a few other people in, then it's like, where do you draw the line? So if we kind of keep it at that, I think we're just going to do like a souped up dinner party, as it were. Our venue's been pretty good about it because it's a smaller club. And I don't know, we'll have like a big fun party in 2022 or whatever, when everyone feels better. But, we've been engaged for a year now. We've been together almost 4 years. We're both turning 30 this year. It seemed like, let's just get it going. How much longer do we need to wait? We already felt like we're probably waiting too long anyway. So that's kind of where things stand. And honestly, it makes it less stressful. We haven't had to do the big invites. We haven't done all the stuff that you would have to be doing right now, for better or for worse.
Yeah, Myles, disinviting people on live TV. But you bring up the point that so many of these couples are just faced with such this tough decision. And Melody Hahm, I want to get you into the conversation. You were engaged at the end of last year in December, originally planning your wedding for October. Where do your plans stand?
Yeah, and 2020 was supposed to be our year as well. I mean, my fiance is from Kansas City. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl. We ran a marathon, the LA Marathon. Things were supposed to be shaping up where 2020 was finally going to be this monumental milestone year. And quickly we realized that that was not going to be the case. Although I do have to say, I'm really grateful that we started looking at venues basically 2 weeks after we got engaged. Initially, I was like, hey, why don't we enjoy this engagement period? And then Jason, my fiance, really pushed and said, no, we should at least explore and see what's out there so that we can decide and cross things off our list. Thank God for that, because we decided on a spot in Malibu. And we were originally kind of like Myles, thinking of like 150 people. It could have kind of ballooned to 200, I think, just based on the number of people that he knows around here. And then we have a lot of family from out of town. So folks from Korea, my whole family's based in New York and New Jersey. So a lot of those plans were quickly kind of put in the air, right? Where I don't know if I would want to enforce that upon them. I don't know if I would want to make them feel uncomfortable. Would people be having to wear masks, even if we were allowed to have that big kind of gathering? And our conclusion is we would not want that to be the case. So all of our vendors, the venue itself, one of the kind of unexpected blessings is that California is so used to natural disasters that a lot of things have been postponed or canceled because of wildfires, because of hurricanes or earthquakes. So there are a lot of those sorts of policy measures in place, even when we were signing the initial contract for the venue prior to the pandemic. But a lot of these mom and pop stores and small caterers, the small florists that we're working with, they have all been so flexible and reasonable, which is probably two adjectives you don't hear at all when you talk about the wedding industry. So I think that's been a real silver lining through all of this, and we may be pushing it to next September. We might just do the courthouse thing on our actual wedding date this year, but I think it would be really sad if we didn't have a full wedding.
And, Melody, we found the same thing with our vendors as well. And I think, our photographer and our band both did the thing where we talked to them, I think it was 6 weeks ago. And they're like, don't make any firm decisions yet. And we haven't made any super firm decisions. It'd be nicer for them if we contracted 10 band members instead of 4 or 5. But ultimately they were fine, kind of not only going to a smaller, slimmed down package or whatever, but also letting us take till, it'll probably just be until mid-September to figure out exactly what the final plan is. And I think we both had a lot of anxiety sitting here early April, wondering, were we locked in? Because we're only 6 months out. Are we locked into tens of thousands of dollars for something that we don't want? And the answer so far has been no. So that's at least been a small win, I guess.
I think it's interesting while I was raising the question and the issue of timeline. It's how far out do you have to make a change? So Melody, as you're thinking about this, it used to be all right, you get the venue, and then once you send out the invitations, that's kind of the point. You can't have no return. What is it now? What are you hearing from vendors? You say California's flexible, but to a point, I imagine. How far out do you think people have to be deciding now? What's the advice you're getting?
Well, especially because COVID has been such a moving target, it has been very difficult to figure out when is the absolute latest date that we can communicate with you guys. And we have been very transparent about that even before signing the contracts, being you have to give us that cutoff date. So for the most part, it has been about 90 days out. So 3 months before our wedding, which is in late October. So by this summer, basically, we have to decide. So within the next month or two, we actually sent our save the dates that had kind of many asterisks saying this may not actually happen, but please mark your calendars just so it's on there. But we will probably send a follow-up saying that it's very likely not going to happen. So we send the save the date out probably end of April, just so it was on people's radar. And for the most part, people are very excited about the possibility of a celebration. I just am thinking more and more that it might not be the most beautiful to do it this year.
You're not alone. Look, a survey came out this spring, 470 couples. The Knot did this. 96% of couples said they were rescheduling their weddings. But that means that 4% of couples aren't waiting. They're just going ahead. And here with what it takes to pull off a wedding is a bride who did just that during shelter in place. I want to bring in Katie Santry Hansen. That's her married name. She's working on getting it changed, but no place is open to go work on doing that. Right. Katie, you got married at the end of March 28th, and you told me that you cried the whole day when your wedding got canceled, but you decided to actually move ahead, and you did have a wedding. Tell us what you did. You had a 300-person wedding. They canceled it. What did you do?
Yeah, so our wedding got canceled 12 days before. Once our venue and the shelter in place and limitations were put on people being allowed to gather. So we made a plan B, and then we made a plan C. And then by the time we got to plan D, I had found an Airbnb here in Columbus. Our wedding was supposed to be in Kansas, but we live here in Columbus, Ohio. So I found an Airbnb, and after explaining the situation to them, he gave me a discounted rate, and it was this beautiful loft downtown, and it had this really pretty brick wall. So I went to Walmart and I got 50 fake LED candles. I got boxes and boxes of fake rose petals to make myself an aisle, because we were determined to keep our date. Coronavirus affected us in so many different ways with our personal life and our business. And the date was the only thing I felt like we had left. So it was really important to us to put our dress and our suit on and still take that day to be our day.
And Katie, Melody here, when you think about the original guest list that you had and all of your bridesmaids and groomsmen, and I don't know if you were able to get in a bachelorette party, all of those other kinds of milestones leading up to the wedding, were you planning to reschedule those things? Are those things kind of canceled entirely? How are you thinking about everything that, in addition to the wedding day itself?
Well, luckily, we have the best friends, and all of our friends put on their bridesmaids' dresses and their groomsmen's suits, and we Zoomed with them before the wedding. And both my parents were able to drive in, so they FaceTimed my siblings. I had a bachelorette party a few months back, so I did get to have that. And we would like to still have a reception, We have a wedding video that we got made that's a few minutes long. So we wanted to have a wedding reception that could play that. And then we are hoping to still have that father-daughter dance and be announced in for the first time as Mr. and Mrs. Hansen, like all the things that we didn't get to do. But we're just really glad that we were still able to get married when we wanted to.
So Katie, you said that the groomsmen got dressed, but you also told me that they were wearing their underwear and they actually didn't put on their pants because it was a Zoom. So nobody cares.
Like, put pants on. So they had their suit jackets on, and the girls had done their hair. I mean, because they had dresses, they didn't have a choice. But the guys sat there and my husband's over there FaceTiming them now, bragging about it. But there was boxers and blazers.
And you got all of your money back from your vendor, so you have that. One thing is when you get married, you barely get to talk to the person you're marrying. You don't get to eat any of the food. It's a really crazy night. Yours was different. In the end, was it special?
Yes, and that was Alex's biggest fear was when we were looking at still getting married and we were talking about doing it in our backyard or where we were going to do it. His whole thing was he still wanted it to be special. And after talking to my mom, and she kind of reiterated to us that the day is special because him and I got married. We've been together for 7 years, and we were really excited about our venue. And so we were engaged for almost 2 years to get into our venue, but that's okay. We just really wanted to get married. So, and the nice thing is after my friend had mentioned that to me, she had a really big wedding and she was like, I don't even remember talking to my husband the entire night. And we were able to dance and we had chicken wings and got pretty drunk and it was great.
Well, congratulations on pulling it off. Hope you get your big party eventually. Katie Santry again, a quarantine bride, and now she's on her quarantine honeymoon.
Yes.
As well. Great to get a chance to talk with you. Thanks so much. Our next guest has seen all the trends in weddings, cupcakes instead of cakes, photo booths, even a dog or two, but she's never seen anything like the last few months. She's been hosting weddings for over 40 years. Teresa Clayton, Glencliff Manor owner. So Teresa, look, you have obviously had to make a huge change in your business. You've had a lot of weddings canceled. We just talked with a bride who had her venue. She couldn't get back in there for another 2 years, so she had to pull something off. How have you been accommodating people that have had to make changes? Have you been able to move all of your weddings?
We have. We've been very lucky. I mean, our brides have been super flexible as to the dates that we're able to give them. So, typically, of course, everybody wants a Saturday, but we were able to move them to Fridays, to Sundays, wherever we had the space. So we've been able to move comfortably everybody and make everybody happy that we already had booked, which was a lot for April and May.
What do you think weddings are going to look like in the fall? I mean, you've been doing some mini weddings. What are people asking for? What are the trends you're seeing now?
Well, I think that, for the fall, and I think for a good while to come, I think weddings are going to be smaller. What I'm seeing now with the couples that we have already booked here for their weddings, they're tending to look like their guest counts are going to be about half of what they were, if not smaller. I know the first one we've got coming up, they just went from 150 people down to 50. So I think that's going to be the trend. There's a lot of people who can't get here, because either the date doesn't work or because they're out of the country or they're coming from a hot spot, whatever the case may be. I think, though, that what they're going to do is with those smaller guest counts, I think they're going to, maybe treat the guests a little more like royalty than what they were going to do before. They're going to add those extra hors d'oeuvres. They're going to, do the wine pairings with dinner, different things like that to make it even more special.
And Teresa, just on the fact that weddings going forward, they're going to be smaller. I guess, what does that mean for your business? How are you weathering that financial impact? And then also, are the types of packages that you're offering to these couples that do in fact decide to get married at your venue, are you offering them different packages as a result of the fact that their needs and their wants have changed over the last couple of months?
Well, we are. And of course it's difficult. All of our vendors are on staff. So, when you've only got a cake, say for, 25 people instead of 150 people, it's a hardship on the cake baker. It's a hardship on our chef. You know, some of the vendors, it's going to be about the same. But what we are doing, we're offering several different new packages. You know, we're doing a just the two of us. If, you know, somebody just wants to get married and they get an hour's worth of time, they're going to get their minister, their photographer, they can do their ceremony, they can take great, pretty pictures to remember the day. You know, we'll make them a bouquet. We're going to do one, the mini monies, you know, with 10 people, where same thing, they're going to get their minister, the photographer, a cake, you know, a little tray of hors d'oeuvres. But then we're going to do, and this is what I think is going to trend for the next year, we're going to do micro luxury weddings, where we're going to kick it up a notch. You know, you've only got 35 people or less, maybe, you know, so it is going to be the over the top food, the over the top service, the over the top flowers, so that those guests that they choose are going to feel super special.
Yeah, true. About that. Do you really anticipate that quote unquote extra money would be reinvested into the existing guest list? Or given the fact that our economy is in such great decline right now and folks have lost their jobs left and right, do you think they'll take the opportunity to say, hey, let's actually cut our budget, you know, 200%? And let's make it as kind of economical as possible.
And there are certainly going to be couples that do that. You know, there are couples who, because of their high head counts that they had before, they were choosing, you know, very simple buffet or something like that. They're gonna be happy about the fact that the head counts are down and the cost is down. There's no doubt about that. You know, I think it's probably going to be about half and half. And if people, I was just going to say, I heard y'all saying, where do you begin to cut a guest count? And this has been my advice all these years for our brides. When you make out your guest list, think about if you were out at dinner with that person, would you pick up the tab? And if the answer is no, they don't make the cut. Because in essence, what you're doing is buying them dinner.
Wow. Okay, that's giving us a lot to think about here. Teresa Clayton, Glencliff Manor owner, talking about how her business is changing in terms of really slimming down these big weddings. Great to get a chance to talk with you, and have a good weekend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being on.
According to Wedding Wire, the average couple books about 15 vendors for their big day, from the photographer to the florist to the band. So what happens if you need to cancel? David Burke, founder and CEO of eWed Insurance, joins us now. And David, you're also a former wedding planner. So we are going to talk about trends you're seeing, but I just want to start with insurance right off here, because a lot of people are looking at this pandemic and thinking, oh gosh, what's going to happen with my wedding? Is it too late to go get wedding insurance at this point?
Hi, thank you for having me. And unfortunately, it is too late for wedding insurance, or at least for COVID these days. There are a few companies that are still selling wedding insurance. A number of them have pulled out of the business. eWed is still offering insurance, but to get COVID coverage, it's too late. People who bought last year, before anyone knew about COVID, were covered for this year. And then people are buying insurance this year for what they don't know about next year or for later on. There's still, lots of benefits to cancellation insurance, from illness, injuries, severe weather, vendor bankruptcies. Just anything related to COVID is excluded.
So if somebody did take out insurance before, though, are you seeing payments go out for people that have had to cancel because of the pandemic?
Absolutely. And, we've gladly made a number of those payments. We're in the business of selling insurance and paying people when, something unfortunate does happen to them. That is the reason they bought insurance in the first place. And we're more than happy to cover those claims. What we're seeing more than anything, though, is we do get the claims for people moving their weddings. A lot of people are moving their weddings, and things like, printed materials or party favors that have a date on them are no longer valid. So they're making a claim for those types of things. But the vendors have been very accommodating of moving to a new date, and then we'll change the date of the policy to accommodate our brides for no charge.
And David, of course, especially given your experience as a wedding planner, I've actually had a couple friends over the last few months get engaged during quarantine, and they're already putting dates on the calendar for next year, which in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, that seems a little bit risky just because we don't know the pace of what our world will look like next year. Would you advise folks who are getting engaged now to kind of move forward with planning a normal wedding for next year?
I would have advised that, because sooner or later we're going to see a return to normalcy. And what I think you're seeing more than anything is, with all the weddings being postponed, February, March, April, May, June, July, there's a crunch for weddings in the fall, and there's a big crunch for weddings next year. People are realizing there's only 52 Saturdays in a year, and there's 365 days. I'm seeing Sunday weddings. I'm seeing Wednesday weddings. But I would say, if you're newly engaged, lock in that date as soon as possible, but have a discussion and a negotiation with your venue or your vendors. What happens if I need to move the wedding due to COVID? Will you work with me? And then wedding insurance is there as a backstop for things other than COVID.
Hey, David, if someone wanted to go out and get wedding insurance, I guess, can you go over what exactly it covers and how much people could expect to pay for it?
Certainly, happy to. There's two types of wedding insurance: liability and cancellation. Liability insurance is typically required by a venue to cover any damage to the venue caused by the bride or the groom or any of their guests. It could also protect you if someone leaves the wedding drunk and you get sued. Then there's cancellation insurance, which is the one that's the top of everyone's mind right now, and that pays you for lost deposits. If you pay a deposit to a vendor or a venue, and severe weather, accident, illness, injury, a vendor bankruptcy, a fire or flood, if the caterer or the venue prevent them from performing and they keep your deposit, it reimburses you for that deposit.
David Burke, great to talk with you, founder and CEO of eWed. Sounds like you're still in business, even as everyone's kind of changing and looking at some smaller weddings. Have a great weekend.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
So let's get back to our two not engaged to each other. They're engaged to different people, but our couples here, and see if they've learned anything or made any changes. Myles, what do you think? You're going to cut the guest list even further now?
No, I think we've gone as small as we can go. I mean, unless the state says we can't do more than 10, I don't know if there's going to be any further cutting. I didn't realize, Jen, how upset you would be about finding out that you're not on the list anymore, considering I figured you could have done the math on that, right?
And that was savage. You did it where she can't even respond to you.
I mean, we're in a pandemic. I'm sorry. Work friends are out.
Wow. We barely even work together anymore. Melody, quick, what have you learned?
Yeah, I think for me, I just forgot how many things are communal at weddings, like hors d'oeuvres, platters, like any sort, because we were contemplating family style, like something interesting with like Asian cuisine, etc. All that is out the window. So even if we do it next year, people are going to be such germaphobes.
It's going to be special no matter what you guys choose. You can ask me and Seana. You're going to have a great time. Thanks so much for watching our special I Don't Weddings on Hold. See you later.